So I appreciate you, and we're gonna get into the questions. So the first question I have is, as men, specifically black men, we're often told to man up or stay strong. What did it take for you to unlearn that and begin your healing journey? And Caleb, I want to start with you, and then we'll come this way.
Pressure be on me.
Just because you just spoke, man.
But yeah, as a black man, you know, I got the faith-based background. So I come from like the pastors and the church kids and things like that. And I be joking around with people. I just be telling people, like, I guess like the PKs, they just got to run with the devil for a season because, you know, it's just you trying to just do all these great things and they tell you just got to pray about this and pray about that. And then, you know, like 4 or 5 years ago, you know, I just started learning that, you know, God and therapy. I know my therapist, Jeff, he's really helped me out a lot, you know, taking therapy, mixing it in with the scripture, but understanding is that, you know, us as black men, we just don't have to suffer alone. We conditioned to just feel like we just got to just do it all by ourselves. We can't ask anybody for help, and it's really just more limited belief systems of anything.
Appreciate that. Anyone else want to take a stab at that question before we jump to the next one?
So in regards to that question, I think for me, because I come from a Haitian background, so the men in our community, we're not taught to show emotions at all. Yeah. You know, we're really taught to just push forward and not think about anything that can happen emotionally, mentally, spiritually, right? So for me, I had to unlearn that, especially with me being a father. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want my kids to feel like they can't show their emotions. Yeah. Because I don't want them walking around thinking that it's just, it's a scary thing to not have emotions. It's a scary thing to not be balanced in that. You know what I'm saying? Because then when you come with anger and you have all these set emotions as men that we deal with, when we're angry and we're upset and we do these things, those are emotions as well. We don't realize those are also emotions that we deal with, but we don't know how to handle them. So I had to teach myself how to handle these things by therapy and coaching. And now me having a child that's 16, about to go to the world on his own, I had to teach him the same thing. So for me as a black man and raising 2 black boys, I had to teach them how to control their emotions and have a balance to that.
Appreciate that answer, brother. Appreciate that.
Of course.
So the next question I want to get into, and Kev, I'll have you answer this question first. What role has community played in your mental health, and what does a healthy support system actually look like for men like us?
Believe it or not, community is very important. As Jordan know, I facilitated Black Men in Resiliency, Black Men in Trauma. And we didn't have a lot of groups that had brothers come together and talk about what they were going through. And there were times that brothers would come in and another brother would just be there to support, and we did things together. I think every one of us has to find a group. Yeah. Even if we're in a relationship, we get this idea that if we're in a relationship, that sole relationship is the center of our lives. But a healthy relationship means you have a partnership with that individual, then you have hobbies, you have activities, you have interests, and you got friends, right? And you got other people that support you. And in friendship, there's levels to friendship. Right. You have friends that you just go out and play ball with. But there's always that friend that you can call 1 or 2 or 3 o'clock at night in the morning and say, bro, I got a lot on my mind. I need you right away. That's another level of friend. And so community consists of friends, family, therapy, support groups, and I can't stress enough how important it is for us to have support groups. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I hope you don't mind if I detour a little bit back to the first question.
Hey, the floor is yours,
brother.
Well,
we have this idea that men are not supposed to be emotional. What I'm finding is that most of us are emotional. And what emotional comes from is not being in tune with your emotions, so they take you over. One of the only emotions that black men are, it's okay for us to show, is anger. Oh man, he's mad, he's angry. That's not the only emotion. In fact, anger is a secondary emotion. If you look up what's under the anger, you're gonna see embarrassment, shame, excitement, some of us fear. You're gonna find a whole lot of other emotions there. And so I always say to brothers, do a check-in. at least 3 times a day. Get up in the morning, and the first relationship you have is a check-in with yourself. Whether you have spiritual practice, meditation, check in and see how you feel. Afternoon, check in. Evening, check in. If you don't, you're going to have all those emotions up under anger that take you over. That's emotional. It's when you're not in touch with what you feel, you don't express it, and all those emotions take you over. So to me, manning up is not a bad word. Manning up only means checking in, knowing what you're feeling, being involved with what you feel so that you don't get taken over and become emotional.
That's that emotional intelligence.
That's right. Right.
I appreciate that answer, brother. I'm not gonna try and make y'all follow up his answer, because you hit the nail on the head. You left no stone unturned, man. So we're gonna get into the next question. Kev, I'm gonna ask this to you. Can you recall a moment when you realized your mental health needed attention, and how did you respond to it?
It's tough. I don't know if many of you guys know. Oh well, majority of you probably don't know, but I was a veteran for 8 years, right? I was a combat medic, a corpsman, and I served in Afghanistan 2010 and 2011. The end of my last deployment, they kept pushing us back, right? They kept extending our time. They gave us a time we was gonna get out of there. They kept extending the time, right? So this is where I said that fear, right, it coincides with anger, right? Yeah. Because if we're scared, our first emotions will go to anger, because as men, that's our defense mechanism, right? So they kept pushing our time back, I'm scared. I'm already been there 9 months, hoping I can make it out of there, right? Every day. And now that frustration, that fear, that anger is taking over. Now I see myself yelling at my subordinates, right? Before firefights, I'm getting in arguments back in the camp before we go out and have to fight, right? With my subordinates and whatnot. So that led up to us leaving and coming back here, right? I got back home. Now my daughter's older now. I'm snapping at my daughter for no reason. And if you know me, I'm a calm dude. Like, I'm not even going to raise my voice.
It's that condition.
So I'm snapping at my daughter, and one of my Marine buddies was like, yo, Kev, you need to come up to the VA and talk to somebody, right? Just fill it out, man. Just get it off your chest and talk to someone. So that is a moment that I realized, I need help, because this is me. I'm outside of my body. I don't act like this, right? So going to the therapist at the VA is a non-veteran, no offense, white male, non-veteran, and someone I couldn't relate to. And I was just like, man, I'm not doing this. I feel stupid. First of all, I feel stupid going. And then getting through that process was another bridge to cross. But in that moment, to answer that, that's when I realized, I need help. I need to talk to someone. I need to get this off my chest. And then further down the line, I had other therapists that, I could relate to a little bit more, sat down, talked to, spoke with, and dropping that shell, dropping that hardness, being open, really getting in tune with your emotion, and realizing I'm not an angry person. I was a scared person, right? That was fear. Checking that fear in the mornings. Checking in with yourself every morning is highly important, because you set yourself up for greatness throughout that day, right? And everything else to come to that, to come to you throughout the day.
It's that conversation itself.
Yeah. I hope I answered the question, right? All right.
Nah, that was an amazing answer. You more than answered that question, man. Caleb, this next question is coming straight to you, man. So, Caleb, as a man of faith, how do you navigate the balance between spiritual healing and seeking professional mental health support? I know you touched a little bit on that earlier, but just to expand on that.
So basically, how I break it down is really just like this. When it comes to being a man of God, being a man of faith, I realize, there's times to pray, there's times to fast, but, God did create therapists, coaches, counselors for a reason. And, scripture even talks about having multiple advisors, how iron sharpens iron, I always tell people, like, how you gonna be sharpened, if you remain dull because you don't reach out to nobody. So, like, when it comes to things, I'll bring it down for myself as an example. I know when I'm just running on empty, it's like, man, like, I just need something. So I'm just like, all right, I'm trying to do everything myself. I prayed, I fasted, I talked to my accountability partner, I talked to my pastor, and I realized, like, sometimes in life, like, there's time to talk to, like, your pastor, and then there's just times you're gonna do something, like, mental. Like, you're just like, man, I don't feel good. Like, I'm just manic. I haven't slept in a couple days. Like, there may be that time, but you may need some medication for a season. You may need to change your diet up. So, like, talking to your therapist is not like a bad thing. It don't mean that you're crazy. It means something wrong with you. It just means you just need more tools to sharpen yourself. So honestly, you just don't crash out on people. So like, there's times when it comes to like the mental stuff where it's like, I ain't slept in a couple days. And then when you come to talking to God where it's like, okay, like, I feel like I'm going through a spiritual warfare right now. Like, you talk to that more about with your pastor, because, sometimes it's really just about using discernment at the end of the day. Like, only you know yourself better than anybody.
Right.
I appreciate that answer, brother. And Emmanuel, this next question about to be for you, man. So, as a life coach, what do you think holds men back from stepping into their purpose, and how does mental health factor into that?
So I feel like what avoids people.
Hold the mic up here, brother. Like,
oh, sorry.
Right there. There you go.
I think what avoids men from stepping into their purpose, honestly, is society's norm. The idea of men have to always be strong all the time. Men have to provide, protect, and provide provision. That's all that we're used for. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're told. That's all we're used for is for that. But you got to think about it in this aspect. If you're not whole yourself, how can you be whole for anybody else that rely on you? You have children that rely on you. You have a spouse that relies on you. But you yourself are not mentally okay. You're struggling. Like, you know what I'm saying? And they don't know that you're struggling because you're not talking about it. You're holding it in. You know what I'm saying? And when that happens, you start, like you said, crashing out on people that you care about. You start hurting people without realizing that you're hurting them. Start bleeding on people that you're not supposed to be bleeding on. You know what I'm saying? And when you start to actually focus on yourself, because it took me a while to get there. You know what I'm saying? When I was, and I'll be honest with y'all, in my stage of when I was toxic, and I was unhealed, it was a terrible stage in my life, because I didn't realize how many people I was damaging in that process. So when I realized that, I had to open up to my therapist. I'm like, listen, this is not me. Like, I'm not this person. Like, I don't know this person. Even though at that moment of my life, I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, I'll be honest. I enjoyed that moment of my life when I was toxic, because I didn't know any better. You know what I'm saying? But when I started to snap out of it, and I realized I was doing damage to not only my kids, but their mother, the person that I was with at the time, my mom, the people in my immediate circle, when they recognized that I wasn't being myself, and they wanted to push away from me because I wasn't being myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't realize how much people you damage when you not focusing on you, especially if you're a person that people rely on. You got to think about how many people rely on you on an everyday basis. But if you're not being the best version of yourself, you're damaging them on top of damaging yourself. You know what I'm saying? And coaching it helps. I have a lot of people that come to me, ages 30 and up, that want to change their mindset. And we all know, like, the older generation, sometimes it's hard to change their mindset because they're conditioned to certain things. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that they're wanting to change, everybody can do it. You just have to want it. Nobody can want it more than you want it. That's the way I look at it.
That's a fact. So we're going to ask one more question. I'm going to give each of you the opportunity to answer it. And then I want to open up the floor to you all. If you have questions, any question, no question is a bad question. So we'll open it up for a Q&A. So the last question I want to ask is, each of you has a different path, whether it be the military, coaching, recovery, therapy. How has your identity as a black man shaped the way that you show up for others now? And anyone who wants to start, you can start it.
I'll say my transparency as a person, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people want to lead with their truth, but truth can also falter the way that I look at it. I feel like if I'm transparent with everything that I got going on, that's how I actually built my platform. The platform that I have is being transparent. I never I never hid away from anything that I dealt with. I always was open about it. No matter if it was the smallest thing, I opened up about it and I spoke about it because somebody can learn from my experiences. No matter how small it is, no matter how big it is, somebody can learn from my mistakes and gain that lesson that I didn't gain at the time. You know what I'm saying? So being transparent, especially in the black community, we're afraid to be honest with each other, right? We're afraid to just be truthful about what's going on. If you're honest and open about certain things, about just everything, if you can be, right? If you're just honest about it, you can find the help that you need. You'll find the support that you need if you're open enough. But there's the difference between truthful and transparent. You have to be transparent with what you got going on. Being truthful is cool, but if you're not transparent, you're not really being real with yourself.
Appreciate that. Kev, if you want.
Yeah, I think we first need to know that when we show up, the mindset is to make sure that I always say this, right? I always say that we might want to save the world or even our children, but there's a reason why they tell you when you're on a plane and it's going down or it's emergency to put that mask on you first. Because, and I've heard people say, no, it's my baby, it's my so-and-so, but you'll pass out and you'll not know how to help the next person. So I think one of the things we have to do is model, right? When we show up, model first of all that we are not perfect and that we are also on a journey of healing, right? And it's cool to do things to heal. It's cool to go to therapy. It's cool to reach out and talk to somebody. Sometimes you don't have a therapist, but we can teach brothers how to ask certain questions to check in to see if that brother's all right. Yeah. And I always say to brothers, when I say, how you doing? I'm good. Good is not an emotion. Oh, how you doing, brother? I'm fine. Fine is not an emotion. Brother, you happy, sad, angry? There's thousands of emotions. You know, how do you feel? And so we kind of model, and then we don't try to fake it. There's days that I'm tired. Yeah. And people ask me, yo, man, I'm tired, son. I'm tired. That's it. Dude, I'm tired. Yeah, but you're supposed to, listen, I'm a therapist, but I'm tired, son. And I'm a little angry because such and such happened. So we give them permission to express themselves and how they feel in real time. Yeah. Now, there's two kinds of philosophies in therapy talking about showing up. One is that we don't self-disclose at all. There's an old, like, Freudian, you know, when a person lying down and you know nothing about your therapist. Or you know nothing about the brother you're with. Because they're afraid that if I show vulnerability and weakness, then it's going to make the other person weak because I'm going to make it about me. Another way to show up is authentically, where you get used to being truthful. There's a book by a guy called, I think Bill Blanton, called Radical Honesty. It's kind of crazy. It's real radical honesty now. It's kind of off. I can't say use everything that he said, because some of you get escorted by the Connecticut Department of Police and FBI. Some things you just can't be radically honest. It's 20 years ago. Let it go. Statute of limitations, let it go. Just joking. But what he showed was a lot of times we don't show up honest with ourselves. And, you know, on the street, people can feel you. But some people can read you. And if you can kind of be like, listen, there's an author by the name of Wayne Dyer that said that, do you know how they say you have a right to remain silent? Anything you say will, why am I using these terms with law? Something wrong? Something going on? But a lot of times, if rather than be dishonest or inauthentic, just stop. You have a right to remain silent. If I'm going to disclose something that's going to hurt my client, I stop. Because it's not about me, it's about the client. But if I want to share something authentically that could help another brother, why not share your story? Why not show up authentically? So I'm just saying that a lot of times we think we're not good enough because I came from this path, I lived here, or the brother's better than me because he has this education. J. Cole said it, there's no such thing as a life that's better than yours. You have to walk in your truth. Everybody has a path. My path may have been 3 marriages. It has 3 marriages, right? Complications, having to relocate, changing careers, past trouble, having to go to therapy. The reason I'm a therapist is because I know what therapy has done for me. And so I don't hide that about myself. Now, I'm not going to go out and broadcast my troubles, but when I show up with a brother that needs help, that's been where I am, I think the best thing you could do is show up as your authentic self. All right, thank you.
I appreciate that, man. And then Kevin, Caleb, if you want to give a quick little insight to that question. You want me to repeat the question for you?
Yeah, definitely.
I got you. So each of you has a different path, and on that path, how has your identity as a black man shaped the way you show up now for others?
Man, that's a tough question, but you know what I learned is that I don't gotta wear a mask all the time. You know, I thought as soon as I got certified as like a life coach and recovery coach, it was like, this mean I got all the answers and ain't nobody can tell me nothing, and then all I need is God and this, that, and the other. And then I had to pivot back because there's a terminology called religious trauma. And how religious trauma is that basically God this, God that, you know, you don't need anybody else, you know, don't touch God's anointed, all that other stuff. And it's a rabbit hole that I can't really get into all day, you know, but what I learned is this, is that I'm still a man. You know, like, I'm a man of God, but, like, at the end of the day, I'm still a man. I don't got to be perfect. I don't have to have all the answers, and that's... Dang, that distracted me. But, yeah, well, what I was trying to say is that, you know, just at the end of the day, I have a therapist for a reason. So, like, when I'm feeling weak, like, I can lean on him. I used to be like, oh, man, maybe I shouldn't, you know, schedule this therapy session because he may not be able to handle this and the other. But it's like, it was a limited belief system in my mind that said, oh, well, you can't do this because of this, that, and the other. So what I really do is, like, in the morning, in the middle of the day, and in the afternoon, I always tell myself, like, Caleb, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to wear all these masks. You don't owe anybody anything. You know, you're allowed to have a bad day, but, like, a bad day doesn't equal a bad life. You know, we could all change our lives around. So, like, I don't try to be perfect. I just try to be myself, and I just try to be authentic for people. And I know if, like, I'm going through something in my life, like, I know with my clients, I'm just like, you know what, yeah, we could be able to do this session, but I know I take about 5 minutes just to do a little bit of light breath work, some straw breathing, and I just say, you know what, let's just calm down, let's just relax, and let's not take it personal, because it most likely ain't got nothing to do with me. Maybe there's something that we need to communicate, you know, and that's just the way it is. But at the end of the day, I just tell myself, like, okay, I'm gonna have to just book a session with my therapist. I can call my accountability partner or my pastor. I gotta just look out for me, because if I don't show up for me, I can't show up for nobody else. So that's the way I look at it.
Now, last but not least, Kev, and then we're gonna get, if y'all have questions, we're gonna do a Q&A for a couple minutes.
So this question, the part about this question for me that stands out is identity, right? We all could say we struggle with identity, or, you know, trying to find out who we are in order to show up for everyone else, right? So you have to be in a state of vulnerability with yourself to understand that, you know, your strongest teacher is experience, right? If we don't go through the hardships, if we don't go through the things we go through, how could we stand up and look out for one another or share our story, right? And even up to recently, going through hard times as an adult, right? You think you got it all, and then boom, something rocks your world. Pause. For me, it's just coming, you know, in church they say come as you are, right? So when I show up in these classrooms and deliver, you know, my teachings, I'm showing up as me. For a long time, I was scared to show my tattoos. I worked at the VA for 13 years. Always wore long sleeve shirts, like, right? And hiding, you know, that I was from Bridgeport, right? But all those things is what built me, right? Being from Bridgeport is what built me. I'm a unique person from Bridgeport, right? I'm Kevin. I'm from Bridgeport. Products come out of Bridgeport that look like me, right?
I'm Kevin from Bridgeport.
Yes. Two Kevins from Bridgeport, right? So I had to be comfortable with myself. A long story short, I had to be comfortable with myself and understand myself to show up for others, right? And that is the best way I show up for everyone else.
Yeah. I just quickly wanted to share.
Yeah, no problem.
You know, when I noticed when there was questions about religion and therapy, I just happen to have, I talk to almost 35 to 37 people a week, if not almost 40.
Man.
And some of my clients are clergy. These are pastors and ministers that get therapy. And they're people just like everybody else. And so I don't really see the difference. I don't see the issue. When you're sick, you go to the doctor. And so when you have an issue with your mental health, no matter what your positioning, you go see a therapist.
Yeah. So I appreciate each of you brothers being a part of this panel and sharing your wisdom and your insight.